Contemporary Christian author Lowell Stryker tells the following story of a person he met a few years ago who unknowingly taught him a very important lesson. He writes, "A number of years ago, my wife and I were on vacation camping in Colorado, and one day while we were hiking through the mountains, we came upon a fellow hiker who was struggling to make his way up the trail. He was carrying what must have been at least a 75-pound backpack, and so when we asked him if he wanted to stop and take a breather and chat for a while, he was more than willing to oblige. As we talked, the man relayed some of the tribulations of his journey. He said, 'This is only my second day out, and I'm ready to quit right now. I've never been camping before, and I realize I made a great mistake in bringing too much. I've got gourmet food in here, a CD player, a number of books, a pair of binoculars, and enough camera equipment to start my own store. I'm debating right now whether to just dump some of it right here and go on. I've got so much clutter with me that the trip isn't very much fun. Got so much clutter with me that the trip isn't very much fun.'" You ever felt that way? Amen. An all too common problem. And that's what I'd like to talk about this morning. Removing some of the clutter from our lives, or more specifically, learning to travel more lightly. It seems as though just about all of us develop from a very early age a strange, almost overriding need to constantly be bringing as much of our stuff with us as we can, wherever we go. As a young boy, I can remember my mother being frequently upset when a load of wash was ruined due to my failure to completely empty out the great cornucopia of items that I had collected and felt compelled to carry in my pants pockets. Crayons, rubber bands, paper clips, candy, Hot Wheels cars, the occasional small woodland creature. Right? Always carrying a lot of stuff. And of course, this doesn't end with adulthood. If anything, for most, it increases. Years of collecting and holding, and not just the physical stuff, but far more the emotional stuff that we carry with us wherever we go, more often than not, making the trip not much fun. Well, this morning as we begin a new year, how might we learn to travel less loaded down, to make the journey more pleasurable and efficient? In our text this morning, we find Jesus addressing precisely this. He's sending out his followers. They're about to head out into a whole new adventure. And as you may have noticed, Jesus not only instructs them as to what they are to do on this trip, but he also instructs them as to what they are to bring with them. He gives them packing instructions. And as you also may have noted, these instructions make for very lean-down travel. You can tell that Jesus clearly understands our natural propensity to be pack rats. He tells his followers a couple of things they can bring, namely a staff, that is a walking stick, and extra sandals. Note the idea in both of these being the idea of motion, of keeping moving, of not being bogged down in the journey of life, something we'll see running throughout our discussion today. But far more than this, Jesus primarily focuses on what they absolutely must not bring with them. And this is what I would like to reflect upon. Jesus' packing instructions as we prepare to head off into a new year. Learning to travel lightly so that the trip becomes more fun. 3 thoughts. Jesus begins by telling his disciples to take with them no bread and no money. That is, no provisions and no way to provide for themselves. Now, this seems like a rather strange instruction to give a group that you're supposedly sending out on a long journey, doesn't it? Don't take any supplies or cash. American Express, leave home without it. Is Jesus actually planning on this being a very short trip, unbeknownst to his disciples? No. The inference right off the top is that as the disciples go about their work for the Lord, preaching and healing, God will provide for them through the people they come in contact with. That as they serve, all their physical needs will be met. And this, of course, is exactly what happens. The disciples will eventually return from their mission successful and in very good health, more joyful and alive than ever. And this, I believe, points us straight toward the very first rule of traveling lightly and successfully. Not that we must all go home right now, and throw out all our food in our houses and denounce all material possessions or something. But rather that Jesus' point is to place serving the Lord first, and God will provide for you. Conversely, always place your needs first, and you'll find yourself never satisfied. It will be continual struggle. Simply put, the first way that we tend to become burdened down and broken in our life's journeys is that we become obsessed with our needs and our issues, and we make serving the Lord secondary and optional. And what Jesus is saying here is that we have it all backwards, and that's why we suffer. If we'll just flip this around, make serving the Lord primary and our issues secondary, it will all work out and everything will come to us. As Jesus said elsewhere, seek first the kingdom and God's righteousness, and everything else will be added unto you.
Amen.
The point being not that we shouldn't care at all about our own needs, that our issues don't matter. No. It's just a question of priority. What is most important to us, ourselves or the Lord? And let's be honest. How can I serve the Lord today? Not even a question on our minds, because all we're thinking about is, Lord, help me with my problem. You know, there's an old saying in the missionary business that where the Lord leads, the Lord provides. In other words, wherever God directs you, God doesn't leave you there empty-handed. God will supply whatever is needed there. And in this, note the flip side. It's where God leads that God provides. Maybe we struggle for the provision because we're not following the leading. Right? Consider the following true story. A number of years ago, there was this woman, just an average American church member, who suddenly felt called by God to bring Bibles to the people in Russia. Deep in her heart, she believed that this is what God needed her to do. So she got a team together in her church and raised money and bought a whole bunch of Bibles and went to Russia and distributed them. Once she had completed her work, on the day she was set to return home, she was in her hotel room packing her bags when suddenly there was a knock on the door. And it was the maid. The maid had heard that she was giving out Bibles and she desperately wanted one, and she had come to request it. Unfortunately, the woman had already given away all of her Bibles, even her own personal Bible, and there was no more to be had. It broke her heart to have to turn this maid away. Here was a person who had come to her requesting the very thing that she believed God had called her to do, and she was unable to do it. Well, with that, there was another knock on the door. The woman opened the door, and there was a representative of the Gideon Society. He said that their group had just been permitted to place Bibles in all the hotel rooms, and would she like one? And he was holding a stack of Bibles. Where the Lord leads, the Lord provides.
Right.
If you want to get his provision, then you get where he's pointing you. First question of learning to travel more lightly through life. Not what do I need today, but what is the task that God is calling me to today? The former makes life something that continually has to be grasped after. The latter makes something that's just continually being given. It's a much lighter load. Jesus first instructs his disciples to take with them no bread and no money. Secondly, then, along with this, Jesus also instructs his disciples to take with them no bag. In other words, nothing to carry things in. As noted at the outset, this being the great danger in our lives is this gathering and holding mentality that we seem to have. Specifically, however, the inference here being that the disciples, as their needs are being met, might be tempted to sort of stock up for the days ahead. It's only logical. You don't know where your next meal may come from. The people you've helped would probably want to be generous and offer you more than you need, more than just one meal. But you see, by saying take no bag, nothing to carry anything in, Jesus is in effect forcing them to live one meal to the next, day by day. And this is the second great rule of traveling lightly through life. It's live day to day. How often are our lives burned down, weighted down, and ruined by what is not even today, right? We're carrying the weight of other days, frustrations over flawed yesterdays, and worries about hypothetical tomorrows. We are so busy somewhere else that we're never where we are. Right? We pray, give us this day our daily bread, but we don't live it. Now, living day to day, it's an often used cliche, and it's important to understand that it doesn't mean that we must somehow forget the past and make no preparation for the future. No, that's not what Jesus is suggesting. It's just a question of whether or not the past and the future so dwarf the present that it doesn't exist anymore, or at least that there's no joy in it. I believe that living day to day means this. First, it means letting go of the mistakes of yesterday, our own and others. It's putting these things down, alongside the trail and moving on. Recognizing not only that such things are done and over, and in most cases nothing can really be done about them, but even more that if we truly have faith in Jesus Christ, then we can only know such things as forgiven and forgotten. They're gone. Secondly, this means also letting go of and putting down the need to have everything about tomorrow all worked out ahead of time. Every T crossed, every I dotted ahead of time, realizing that such an endeavor is not only impossible to begin with, But even more, simply trusting that no matter what may come, Christ can and does have complete hold of it if we'll just put it in his hands. Remembering that Christ loves us, just remembering that. And maybe in that, even discovering that some of the unexpected things are better than what we've planned. As the great Yogi Berra once said, if life were perfect, it wouldn't be. Loosen that death grip on life. Jesus' outline for his disciples' journey forces them to have to take each day somewhat as a surprise. Thirdly, and most importantly, however, in all of this, living day to day means searching for the blessings of today, of each day, and making the most of that. And believe me, every single day has a blessing. Sometimes you really got to search for it. Sometimes the blessing of the day is just that it's over, right? But every day has a blessing. One of the key elements in Jesus is forcing his disciples to live day to day is that it's forcing them to recognize and to have to look around for how God is providing for them each day. Amen. Do we do this? Do we make a conscious effort to do this? Or are we too busy listing what didn't go right? A noted preacher writes, have you ever heard the story of the fellow who was at a party with his friends and overindulged and fell asleep at the table? I think that's an appropriate illustration for New Year's. Anyway, the fellow overindulged, fell asleep at the table. As a joke, his buddies smeared some strong-smelling cheese dip on his mustache, which caused him to wake up and look around. He sniffed and sniffed, then walked outside and sniffed again, and came back in, walked around, sniffed a bit more time, and then finally sat down in his seat. It's no use, he said to his companions. The whole world stinks. Have you ever felt that way? We have all experienced bad days and horrible situations. We've all felt trapped, helpless, and at times hopeless. We may have even believed the whole world stinks. But I like the other way one woman learned to approach living. She grew up in extreme poverty, but was privileged to be in a Sunday school class taught by a young woman named Alice Freeman Palmer, who was later to become the president of Wellesley College. One day, Mrs. Palmer asked the children to find something beautiful in their homes and then to tell the other children about it next Sunday. The following Sunday, when the little girl was asked what she found that was beautiful at home, she thought of her deeply impoverished condition, and she replied, nothing. There's nothing beautiful about where I live, except the sunshine when it lights the curls in my baby sister's hair. Years later, long after Mrs. Palmer's death, her husband was lecturing at a university out west. He was approached by a distinguished-looking woman, one of the professors, it turns out, who fondly recalled that she had been a member of his wife's Sunday school class. And she said, I can remember that your wife once asked us to find something beautiful in our homes, and that I came back saying that the only thing I could find was the sunshine on my sister's hair. But that assignment was the turning point in my life. I had never looked at things that way. I began to look for something beautiful every single day, wherever I was, and I've been doing so ever since. That one suggestion turned my whole life around. It worked amazing miracles for me in what I saw and in what I found.
Amen.
Live one day at a time, letting go of yesterday, trusting in tomorrow, and seeing the blessing of today. Jesus secondly instructs his disciples to carry no bag. And then finally, Jesus tells his disciples that they are to wear no second tunic, that is, no overcoat. And in this, it's important to note that in this, Jesus is not just, offering some fashion advice here, like the Lord doesn't approve of the layered look or something. But rather that in ancient times, a traveler would wear many layers of clothing. And during the heat of the day, they would wear just one layer to keep cool. And at night, in the cold, they would have their second clothing, their second tunic, to wrap up with and keep warm so that they could sleep outdoors. So by telling his disciples that they are to take no second tunic, to simply have the clothes on their backs, Jesus is in effect forcing them to have to seek shelter each day. That is, he is requiring them to enter into the lives of other people. They cannot stay unto themselves. It's the final rule of traveling lightly. Get outside yourself. This by entering into the lives, and most especially the needs of other people. This, of course, being what the whole thing is about, the heart of it all. The whole mission and purpose of Jesus' disciples then and now. It's to go out. To get out beyond ourselves and get involved in the lives of other people, working miracles, caring, healing, sharing the gospel. No, this is what this whole text is about. Jesus' followers are being sent out. This being arguably where we have it most backwards nowadays. Most Christians today seeing their faith, seeing church as a resting place, a stopping place, a place to go to, rather than what it correctly is. It's a sending place. This being exactly why so many modern Christian journeys are so dead and so painful, because they're not Christian journeys. Rightly speaking, we don't go to church. We are sent from it, you know?
Come on, Brad.
You know, there's an old saying that angels can fly because they take themselves so lightly. It's rule number 3 of traveling lightly. Take yourself lightly by being more about the lives and the blessing of others. It's amazing how heavy we are when we are all that we're carrying. A noted preacher writes, recently I read about a 4th grade teacher in the Midwest who, as part of her final day of school activities with the children, introduced a game called the balloon stomp. The game is very simple. A balloon is tied to each child's ankle, and the object of the game is to pop everybody else's balloon while protecting your own. The last person with the intact balloon wins the game. The concept is, if I win, then you lose. Needless to say, the 9-year-olds entered into the spirit of things vigorously. In each class, when the battle was over, in a matter of seconds, only one balloon was still inflated. There was one very happy winner and a lot of very unhappy losers. Later that day, however, one more class was asked to play this game, only this time the class was filled with developmentally disabled children. The balloon stomp proceeded quite differently here. When the instructions were given, it seemed the only idea these children grasped was that the balloons were supposed to be popped. But instead of fighting each other off, the children got the idea that they were supposed to help one another pop the balloons. They formed a kind of balloon stomp co-op. One little girl knelt down and held her balloon carefully in place like the holder of a field goal kicker, while a little boy stomped it flat, and then he knelt down and held his balloon still for her to stomp. On it went, all the children helping one another in the great stomp, having a great good time. When the very last balloon was popped, everybody cheered, and everybody won. The teacher had at first tried to correct them, but then, the more she watched and the more she thought about it, she began to wonder, who really got the game right, she thought, and who got the game wrong? In all the other classes, only one lucky person won, but in this class, everybody won. In all the other classes, it was a tense, frantic battle, but in this class, it was a fun, easy game. It was relaxed and light, the way anything with balloons ought to be. The lesson was clear. Do you want the easiest, lightest, least stressful path to a joyful victory in life? Well, just resolve to help somebody else win.
Amen.
Most often, it doesn't take much. Just a helping hand, a moment to stop and to help. When they win, you win. Jesus called the 12 and began to send them out 2 by 2 and gave them authority over the unclean spirits. He ordered them to take nothing for their journey except a staff, no bread, no bag, no money in their belts, but to wear sandals and not to put on 2 tunics. This morning, as we prepare to head out into a new year, might we have a great journey, a really good time. Let us travel lightly this year. Make serving God our priority, live day to day, and get out beyond ourselves.